New realities in Central America were on President Bush's mind today as he once again castigated Congress for not approving his $800 million foreign aid request for Nicaragua and Panama. NBC's John Cochran is at the White House with this story tonight.
President Bush said he is barred by law from granting an emergency loan requested by Nicaragua's President Chamorro. Bush said she would not need the loan if Congress would stop stalling on the aid package for troubled Panama and desperate Nicaragua.
The situation in Nicaragua is critical. Mrs. Chamorro's government is absolutely bankrupt, and there are strikes and demonstrations in the streets.
President Bush was elated by the image last month of Violeta Chamorro's inauguration as president, replacing Marxist leader Daniel Ortega. Now the images from Nicaragua are far different. Striking government workers clashed with police this week after Chamorro's government turned down union demands for a 200% wage increase. American officials suspect Chamorro's Marxist opponents of trying to undermine her young presidency. Bush said Congress has no excuse to delay aid for Chamorro.
And I think the American people are frustrated by the inability of the Congress to do business in a prompt and orderly fashion.
A few Democrats said Bush has taken a cheap shot at them, even though they are working hard on an aid package that has not aroused much public support.
When I go home to my district, I don't get very many people saying, gee whiz, fellas, when are you guys going to let the Nicaraguan and Panama aid money go?
The aid package for Nicaragua and Panama has been delayed because both Democrats and Republicans tried to load it down with unrelated measures on abortion, the death penalty for drug-related murders, and the civil war in El Salvador. Although Democrats expect a compromise will free up the aid money next week, they say it's no thanks to President Bush's attack today. They suspect he was grandstanding. White House aides say no. The president was just fed up with congressional foot-dragging. John Cochran, NBC News, the White House.
Another racial barrier fell today in South Africa. The government of F.W. de Klerk announced that it was scrapping apartheid laws that barred blacks from the 240 whites-only state-run hospitals. The reform is effective immediately, but hospital supervisors are expected to implement it slowly to adjust for what was called an orderly transition of health services in South Africa.
Yes, sir, this is ideal. And this is quick. And this is carefree. No matter what the town, folks know beef's not only delicious, it's fast. 12-minute hamburgers, 8-minute steaks, and that great invention, the 5-minute stir fry. Now, isn't that cool? It certainly is. Beef, real food in ideal Georgia, quick West Virginia, carefree Arizona, and cool California.
Only Bob can take 2 hours to buy coffee.
Remember when he dragged us 10 miles for those mushrooms?
Yeah, why should coffee be any different?
Oh, right.
Was good soup.
For 10 miles, I want more than mushrooms.
Where is he?
So, did you pick the beans yourself?
Close. Only Taster's Choice is good enough. It's freeze-dried, and freeze-dried coffee is superior because it retains more flavor and aroma than any other instant coffee.
Good, huh? Excellent.
Only Taster's Choice is good enough.
I can't see a thing. Where are we? Oh, no.
Did you remember to bring the car in?
Napa, because there are no unimportant parts.
I thought you wanted to impress me. Cereal these days needs accessories. You know, fancy fruit shapes, matching textured things. Well, this isn't dressed up at all. It's just flakes. Maybe I was wrong. Yes, I like it. It's simple, classic. Makes a bold statement all by itself.
Kellogg's Corn Flakes.
Cornflakes?
Taste them again for the first time.
3 weeks ago, Robert Polhill's ordeal as a Beirut hostage ended, but now he faces a new ordeal, cancer. As NBC's Robert Hager reports tonight, the doctors who examined Polhill have determined that the disease began during his 39 months in captivity.
I feel very badly that I can't talk to you quite as well as I'd like to be able to.
Days ago, it was evident Polhill was hoarse. Today at Walter Reed with Polhill's wife and mother, the explanation from Dr. Russ Zatchuk.
Unfortunately, the biopsy showed this to be a cancer of the throat, of the larynx.
Tomorrow, doctors will remove Polhill's voice box or larynx. He'll lose normal speech. Later, he'll undergo radiation therapy. Cancer of the larynx is almost always caused by smoking. Polhill smoked all his life. But unlike a lot of cancers, larynx cancer presents an early symptom, chronic hoarseness. So it's often detected early, when the recovery rate is 75%, and the larynx and normal speech can usually be saved. Polhill's cancer, undetected, spread. At this stage, the recovery rate normally decreases to about 50%.
If Polhill had not been in captivity, a doctor might have discovered his cancer earlier. Polhill has said he started getting hoarse a year ago. Although he was seen by a doctor in captivity several times, he didn't complain about the hoarseness. Since he was normally forced by his captors to speak in a whisper, the severity of that hoarseness just wasn't evident to him.
Polhill's wife, Farial, today.
I want the whole world to know that we have decided we are going to overcome this ordeal. We are survivors, and we are definitely going to survive this ordeal.
His doctors say they're optimistic. Robert Hager, NBC News, Washington.
Also in Washington, there's another crackdown on various over-the-counter remedies. The Food and Drug Administration said today it wants to ban 258 ingredients used in those remedies because it said they have no proof that they are effective. This ban could apply to drugs sold to treat everything from dandruff to ingrown toenails. Floodwaters continue to spread today through parts of Texas, Arkansas, and Louisiana, and they're spreading misery wherever they are. At the Lake Livingston Dam in East Texas, water is being released through the floodgates at a record rate, 88,000 cubic feet per second. Officials say the water could flood 200 square miles downriver, and 7,000 people have been urged now to leave their homes. There is some good news on inflation tonight. The government's consumer price index rose last month by just 0.2%. That is the smallest increase in 7 months. Prices for vegetables, fuel oil, and women's clothing, they all fell, but not such good news. The government also says that housing starts last month dropped for the third time in a row, almost 6%. It's the lowest level since the 1982 recession.
Unlike ordinary lawnmowers, every John Deere walk-behind comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee, which means you could mow every lawn in a town the size of Granville, Iowa, population 317. And if you still didn't like your John Deere mower, you could still take it back. The 30-day money-back guarantee from John Deere.
It's as simple as this. If I can't travel, I can't do my job. If I'm constipated, I sure don't want to travel. So what do? Do I take a harsh chemical laxative and hope it doesn't kick in on the way to the airport? No. I found a better way. Daily fiber therapy with Metamucil. Metamucil has no chemical stimulants. It's natural, soluble fiber. A way to give my body the extra fiber it needs every day. To get regular and stay that way. Safely and naturally. So, now when I have one for the road, it's Metamucil.
Metamucil, and you could stay regular for the rest of your life. We interrupt this fill-up
Charge it.
to remind you the Discover card pays you cash back for every charge. Well, we're on our way. It pays to Discover.
What price art these days? 100 years after the death of Vincent van Gogh in poverty, last night, this painting by him set a world record for any work of art, $82.5 million. Where does it go from here? Well, NBC's chief financial correspondent Mike Jensen looks into that.
26 million, 27 million, 28 million, 29 million.
The price went up so fast, the auctioneer at Christie's could hardly keep up. Finally, only 2 bidders remained. Then, only one.
$75 million for you, sir. 75 million.
Add the commission for Christie's and the Van Gogh went for a record-shattering $82.5 million. In Tokyo, it led the evening news. The man from Tokyo's Kobayashi Gallery left without saying which Japanese client had bought the Van Gogh. The Japanese now dominate the art market. They're buying nearly 1/3 of the paintings sold at auction. They aim high. They've bought 4 of the 7 most expensive paintings auctioned in the last few years. In addition to Van Gogh's portrait of Dr. Gachet for $82.5 million, they include Pierrette's Wedding by Pablo Picasso, bought for $51.3 million by a Tokyo real estate developer. Sunflowers by Van Gogh, bought for $39.9 million by a Tokyo insurance company. And Acrobat and Harlequin by Picasso, bought for $38.5 million by a Tokyo department store. Art dealers say Japanese companies have the money and want the publicity.
When some big company buys the big names, the paintings, that made the company's name very prestige for the arts.
Japanese companies love to show paintings by famous artists like Van Gogh, and there are private showings for wealthy Japanese. Even with the Japanese interest, however, art prices have been leveling off. Last night's auction was a big surprise. Christie's had thought the Van Gogh would go for $50 million, tops. Instead, the bidding turned into a fierce battle.
2 people, obviously dogged, obviously determined. They locked horns, and they didn't give up for a good long time.
Now art experts are waiting for the auction of this Renoir tomorrow night at Sotheby's. If it goes for anything like the Van Gogh, it could signal the start of a new escalation in art prices, mostly for famous paintings that are ending up in Tokyo. Mike Jensen, NBC News, New York.
That's Nightly News for this Wednesday night. I'm Tom Brokaw. I'll see you tomorrow night from Mount St. Helens, 10 years after it blew, one of nature's most awesome performances of this century.